Can you explain the difference between a customer and a client in the real estate business? In transactions, there's different ways that people can be held responsible. It's very confusing, and sometimes in a situation you can give away what I call implied representation, and most times when agents do this, it's done innocently. So let's take a hard look at this, and we're doing this for your protection. So stay up to date, subscribe, and click the like button, and let's dig deep on this topic of client versus customer. So first of all, let's maybe define a couple things. What's a customer? Well, in the context of real estate, a customer is someone who's interested in buying, selling, or renting a property, but they have not established a formal agreement or a contractual relationship with a real estate agent or an attorney or a brokerage. Customers are typically at an exploratory stage. They're just gathering information, just beginning to look, and they might be talking to a multiple group of agents simultaneously without having signed any commitment or have any commitment to an agent. A client, on the other hand, is an individual who has entered into a formal agreement with a real estate agent or with the real estate brokerage. And this is often established through a contract such as a listing agreement for sellers or a buyer's representation agreement for buyers. You could have an attorney agreement. But in this case, the clients receive a higher level of service, a higher level of advice, and there's a fiduciary responsibility from the agent. So the agent is legally obligated to act in the client's best interest. So let's think about what are those legal obligations. Well, let's look on both sides. For the customer, the real estate agents owe customers limited duties. Primarily, they need to be honest and fair when they deal with the customer, and they can disclose material facts about a property. Agents are not required to prioritize a customer's interest over those of others. But the legal ramifications, if it's a client, when someone becomes a client, the agent owes them fiduciary duties, which includes loyalty, confidentiality, full disclosure, obedience as long as it's legal, accounting, and reasonable care. This means the agent must act in the client's best interest at all times, even if it conflicts with the agent's own interest or those of others. So let's look first of all into the duties that a real estate agent would owe to just a customer. In the real estate, as we just talked about, customer refers to an individual who has not entered into a formal agency relationship. While the agent owes fewer obligations to a customer than to a client, there are still essential duties and there's ethical responsibilities that must be upheld in this situation with the customer. So number one is honest and fair dealing. So real estate agents are required to treat all customers honestly and fairly. This means that agents must not deceive, mislead, or take advantage of a customer. For instance, an agent should not provide false information about the condition of the property. They can't divulge the motivations of the seller, or they can't talk about legal conditions. They have to be fair and honest in dealing with customers and ensure that they are treated with respect and integrity throughout their interaction with the agent. Secondly, disclosure of material facts. The agents have a duty to disclose these material facts about a property that could affect a customer's decision and could speed up or slow down that decision-making process if they know all the material facts. Those material facts are pieces of information that would influence them to purchase, or it might influence the price they would be willing to pay for a piece of property. For an example, if a home has a significant structural issue, an agent must disclose this to the customer, even if the customer has not formally engaged with the agent as a representative. This obligation also extends to any known issues with the title, with zoning, or environmental hazards related to the property. Any material publicly available facts. Thirdly, there's no duty of confidentiality to the customer. So unlike with clients, real estate agents are not required to maintain confidentiality for customers. What does this mean? Any information that a customer shares with an agent could potentially be shared with others, including the agent's clients or other parties that are involved in the transaction. For example, if a customer mentions that they are willing to pay more for a property than they initially offered or the listing price was, the agent can disclose this information to the seller if it benefits the seller. Therefore, the customers need to be really cautious about sharing sensitive information with an agent who does not have responsibility to represent them as a client or a signed buyer's agency agreement. Also, agent is required to give accurate information. Agents must give truthful information to customers. This duty includes ensuring that any data related to property listings such as square footage, property features, neighborhood details is correct and up to date. Providing accurate information helps maintain transparency and allows customers to make informed decisions. If an agent is unsure about certain details, they should clarify that to the customer rather than guessing or providing potentially misleading information. 5, avoiding misrepresentation. So many times this is done accidentally by realtors, but a real estate agent must avoid making false statements or misrepresenting facts to customers or giving professional advice. Misrepresentation can occur in various ways, such as exaggerations of the benefits of a property, downplaying its flaws, making claims about future property values, and so many times an agent will inadvertently do those things, but they can be held accountable or liable if it causes a customer to make a decision based on incorrect information. Therefore, agents should be careful and make sure that any statements they make are supported by evidence. And also, they are due to customers is limited assistance. So while agents owe certain duties to customers, the level of assistance provided is generally more limited than that provided to clients. Agents may assist customers with basic tasks such as showing properties, answering general questions, and providing access to property information. However, they are not obligated to offer strategic advice, negotiate on the customer's behalf, or to advocate for the customer's best interest as they would for a client. So this limited assistance reflects the transactional nature of the relationship because it's just between an agent and a customer. So it's just on the transaction. There's no duties owed. 7, transparency about representation. You need to explain this to people. Agents should be transparent with customers about whom they represent in the transaction. If I have a listing agreement and we don't have an agreement, I'm representing the seller. If an agent is representing the seller, they must make it clear to the buyer, who is a customer, that their primary duty is to the seller. This transparency will help prevent misunderstandings and ensures that the customers are aware of any potential conflicts of interest. In some of those cases, an agent may work with both parties in a transaction under dual agency, which is legal in the state of Missouri, but this must be clearly disclosed and agreed to by both parties that will be involved in this transaction. The buyer and the seller have to agree this. There's also a duty to the customer to refrain from giving legal or financial advice. So many times they innocently will do this, an agent will, with somebody who is just a customer. While agents can provide general information, they should refrain from giving specific legal or financial advice to customers. This is because agents are typically not qualified to provide expert advice in these areas, and doing so lead to liability issues. For an example, an agent should not advise a customer on how to structure a mortgage or to interpret complex legal documents. Instead, they need to refer those customers to the appropriate professional, such as attorneys, or to financial advisors for specified or specific advice. 9, ethical marketing practices. With a customer, we need to make sure that we explain marketing properties to customers. Agents must adhere to ethical practices. This includes avoiding deceptive advertising, accurately representing the property's features, and ensuring that all marketing materials are truthful and not misleading. Ethical marketing helps maintain the integrity of the real estate profession and builds trust with customers. Next, there's got to be non-discriminatory practices. Agents are required to treat all customers equally, regardless of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, family status, and this obligation is reinforced by the federal and state housing laws, and these discriminatory practices are illegal and unethical, and agents must assure that all customers have equal access to housing opportunities and are treated with respect and with fairness. Obligation to convert a customer into a client. And this is an ethical situation. While not a formal duty, it is often in the best interest of both the agent and the customer to convert this relationship from just being a customer to being a client. This allows the agent to provide a higher level of service and to establish a fiduciary responsibility, which can lead to better outcomes for the customer. Ethically, an agent should explain the benefits of becoming a client, such as receiving dedicated representation, strategic advice, confidentiality, where that conversation is held private, which can ultimately enhance the customer's real estate experience. This explanation should kind of give you a comprehensive understanding of the responsibility that a real estate owes to customers, emphasizing these importances of honesty, transparency, ethical practices in all interaction. But what about the duties that a realtor owes to a client who has signed an agreement? So let's look at the flip side of this. So that first part was about the customer. Now what happens when we have a client? So to have a client, we have an agreement. So when a real estate agent, a realtor, enters into a formal agreement with the client, the agent assumes a fiduciary duty, which is a legal and ethical obligation to act in the best interest of the client. The key duties owed to the client include obedience, loyalty, disclosure of information, confidentiality, accountability. And you think, what is accountability? We're going to look at that in detail in a minute. Reasonable care, skill, and diligence. Each of these duties are essential to maintain trust and ensuring that the client's real estate goals are met. So let's look at the first one, obedience. The duty of obedience requires a real estate agent to follow the lawful instructions of their client. We may not always agree as a realtor with the client, but we're to follow their lawful instructions. This means that as long as the client's directions are legal and within the scope of the agent's authority, the agent must carry them out, even if the agent personally disagrees with the client's decisions. So for example, if a client instructs an agent to accept a specific offer on a property or to pursue a certain negotiation strategy, that agent is obligated to comply with these instructions from their client. However, obedience does not extend to illegal activities. An agent cannot follow instructions that would violate the law or ethical standards. Secondly, that agent to the client owes loyalty. And this is perhaps one of the most fundamental duties of a real estate agent and what they owe to the client. It requires the agent to put the client's interest above all others, including the agent's own interest. And sometimes we have to really work at being objective. If you're going to be an agent, you've got to be objective. The client's care above yours. This means the agent must act in a manner that benefits the client, even if it results in something like a lower commission for the agent or requires more effort or extra work. For example, an agent must disclose any conflicts of interest, such as having a personal or financial interest in a transaction, and must avoid any actions that could compromise the client's position. Loyalty also entails advocating for the client's best interest in negotiations and striving to achieve the most favorable outcome for the client. Third, disclosure of information. The duty of disclosure obligates an agent to provide the client with all relevant and material information that could affect their decisions. This can include several things. It's disclosing facts about the property. It could be disclosing facts about market conditions. It can be disclosing offers received or any potential any potential issues that could impact the transaction. For instance, if the agent is aware of a significant defect in the property or there is a competing offer that could influence the client's strategy, the agent must inform the client. Full disclosure ensures that the agent has all the information that they need to make an intelligent, informed decision. However, disclosure does not mean that the agent should share confidential information about other parties involved in that transaction. Number 4, confidentiality. So let's talk about this a little bit. Confidentiality is a critical duty that requires the agent to protect the client's private information. This does not include disclosing details about the client's motivation, financial situation, or willingness to negotiate, unless the client has given explicit permission to do so. So you've got to keep that stuff private unless they tell you you can talk about it. In some states, those are in your documents. For example, if a client reveals they are willing to accept a lower price than the listing price, the agent must keep this information confidential and not share it with potential buyers or with other potential agents. This confidentiality helps maintain the client's bargaining position and sets up a better negotiation that protects the personal interest of your client. One thing that most people don't understand is this duty extends beyond the termination of the agent-client relationship. Even after the transaction is completed, the agent must continue to keep the client's information confidential. Number 5, accountability. The duty of accountability requires the agent to properly account for all funds, documents, and property entrusted to them by the client. This includes keeping accurate records of financial transactions such as deposits, earnest money, disbursements, ensuring that these funds are handled according to the terms of the agreement. For example, if a client provides an earnest money deposit, the agent must ensure that these funds are deposited into an escrow account or with a title company and used appropriately. Accountability also extends to the management of documents such as contracts, disclosures, amendments, ensuring that all the paperwork is completed accurately and in a timely manner. Proper accountability will help prevent disputes and ensures transparency in the transaction. Number 6, and the final thing, reasonable care, skill, and diligence. The duty of reasonable care and skill and diligence requires the agents to perform their duties with the level of competence and professionalism expected in the real estate industry. This means the agent must use their knowledge and experience and judgment to represent the client effectively. For example, the agent should provide market data information, market analysis. They should advise the client on pricing strategies. They should guide the client through the complexities of the transactions. They should be good with their negotiation skills. If the agent lacks expertise in a particular area, such as commercial real estate or legal issues, or something out of their local market, they should seek either legal advice, additional advice, or refer the client to a specialist. Diligence also means that the agent should be proactive in identifying and addressing potential issues, ensuring that the transaction progresses smoothly and efficiently. The agent must always act in a manner that protects the client's interest and helps them achieve their real estate goals. So finally, we wrap all this down from client, customer. The conclusion with the client is these duties: obedience, loyalty, disclosure of information, confidentiality, accountability, reasonable care form the foundation of the fiduciary relationship between a real estate agent, a realtor, and their client. By adhering to these principles, agents can build strong, trust-based relationships with their clients, ensuring that they provide the highest level of service and help their clients navigate the real estate market successfully. So there you have it, an expanded explanation of the clear understanding of the distinctions between customers and clients in real estate, emphasizing the different levels of service that each owes. Go out there, do your job, be true to who you are, and truly be a professional in our industry. See you next time.